God bless everybody today. It's January 19th of 2021, and this is a prophecy update on current events and what's going on out there so we can relate them to what we see in the Bible at this very moment. You can always go to my eschatology page at endofdayssurvival.com. This has all my articles, my 117-step calendar of events. This is the Revelation calendar. It starts at the beginning of the book, goes all the way to the end, gives you a lot of detail on what's coming up in the next 7 years. I just put a article together, I have not done a video on this, about a paradigm that I found in Jeremiah, possibly about the president of Israel, Revlin. I don't know if this is actually a prophecy. It's something that I just found, and I put this out here so that we can have a discussion about it. But there is a lot of paradigms that run through the Bible, and this is a paradigm that I do not believe anyone else is talking about. I've not seen anything on it. There's no videos about it. Actually, this gentleman is fairly low key, and there's just not a lot about him. But he will be replaced in 2021, and that is an important factor in the paradigm when Netanyahu gets elected in, which I believe he will in this year. Also, I did a prediction of how Jeremiah affects the timeline that I put together. If you've not seen that timeline, you can go into this Daniel's Nebuchadnezzar statue. I believe it's got the PDF there, or a number of my articles as you go through here have those different charts and things. But check these new videos out. I think they reflect greatly on what's happening today. But I do believe there are some interesting things coming up, and we need to cover some of these things before we get too far into the new year. So I've been talking about Daniel 8 and how Turkey, which is Gog of Ezekiel 38-39 also, but he's the armies of the north that are going to go against the armies of the south, which is Egypt. Okay, but before they get to the armies of the south, the armies of the north are going to do a Daniel 8. And I've been talking about Daniel 8 for a long time. I want you to look at this right here. Okay, so Turkey's been moving all their checkpoints and observation points out of this region, and they're moving them into this region here because they're going to just basically stall here. They're not going to go any further. As you can see, Assad's been basically hammering the whole northern border of his country, and there's a reason for this, because they're driving the Kurds up here. Okay, they're moving the Kurds out of these areas. Yeah, look at that. Wow, look how that just came up. Okay, so all this stuff is getting smoked right now. They're moving these Kurds into this area. But then look what's happening up here. Turkey's bombarding the whole northern border. And that's what I keep saying. These Kurds are going to start moving this way. They have nowhere else to go. Everybody thinks that Turkey's going straight to Damascus. That's what I keep hearing. They're going to go right to Damascus, and then they're going to go into Israel. That is not how the prophecy is laid out. You have to have Daniel 8 occur first. You have to have the Kurds join Iran, and then Turkey will crush them. Then what happens? Once that occurs, and the Kurds pull down around Shush, Iran, around that river Ulai, that's when they're crushed, then that Ottoman Empire will start to form, and Erdogan will get his white horse crown, and then he's going to go right back through Baghdad and through Israel into Egypt. And why do I say that? because it tells us, if you look at Jeremiah, and I've just done these videos on there, that Jerusalem is under siege in October of 2023. And you're going to say, wow, where'd you pull that number out? You need to go look at the video that I just did. It's amazing the timestamps that Jeremiah puts on this. And why is he doing this? Because there is no way, if you look at this, once you get in from Baghdad, okay, and you come over this way, there is no way through Egypt except through Israel, unless you got boats, okay? So once they start driving across here, they have to go through Israel. And it tells us something extremely important, Jeremiah, if you go to the video. They're besieged, but they do not go through the walls until like 2025 or 2 years later, because the city is under siege for 2 years. Okay? But they have to go through Israel, and what it tells us, there's this very specific area where he places stones. This is where he's going to force them to stop. They will not get any further than this. And that once those stones are put in place, they will not go any further, and then he's going to bring them back to sit between the two seas before they go into and actually break the walls down and actually enter Jerusalem itself. And this is going to be devastating to Israel. And like I say, that new prophecy that I was just talking about in Revlon is the first. He's the president right now. He's going to be replaced in 2021 by Netanyahu. He will win. At least that's what the prophecy says of Jeremiah, or I'm wrong. Okay, and I'm not really sure that I'm right. This is what the Bible says, okay? This is not my ideas. I'm trying to formulate ideas from what he's giving us, and I'm giving you this information, and you can discern whether it's right or not. But past always reflects future. And so we're going to see a similar thing of Jeremiah back in the days of Jehoiakim, or however you say that king's name, and Zedekiah's reign, where he talks about these two kings of Judah and what's going to happen to them. And the prophecy of Revlon is extremely terrible. So I hope it doesn't happen, but it might, and it seems to make sense. But they're not going to drive for, look, they're going to squeeze these Kurds down, and they're going to end up right around Baghdad to Shush, okay? In the province of Elam, okay? That's what look at Daniel 8. The first 10 verses tell you exactly what's going to happen. It's that simple, okay? I don't even have to say any more. Go read the 10 verses. But when that happens, and they pull these Kurds down here, Turkey's going to come down and smack them and crush them both. That's what it says. And Iran will be no longer a country as it is in the next year. So the markets are going to be tremendously affected by this. He's going to gain that Ottoman crown, and then he's going to drive right back through Baghdad into Egypt. Okay, who's going to stop him? This is going to be like Desert Storm on steroids here. Go back and you look at Desert Storm. We went through Iraq in a week. We took them all out. It was done. There was nothing left. Okay, it'll be the same thing here, because we're not there anymore. We got 2,500 troops over there, but yet we got 25,000 troops in our capital right now, waiting for what? To be sieged? Because it's a military zone right there, right now. And we'll get into that later, but right now we're talking about Daniel. So as they're bombing them along this front, Turkey just took this whole area because he just took Azerbaijan. So he's got that. And what I keep saying, look, man, Tehran is right here. Okay? Tehran's right here. Look at his positioning. Boom. Got that. Okay, a little bit of Navy. We got that all covered. And as they're starting to push these people down into this area, they'll have multiple fronts where they can come in and attack Iran. And once they remove this power, no one will stop them. Saudi Arabia doesn't have the ability, and Egypt, as it says, between Daniel 8 and 12, they're constantly going against Antichrist or Gog. Because once Gog gets here, drives down through here and Erdogan gets here, Gog gets here, he's going to get up here and he's going to go against Israel. He doesn't get into the city. And this is something that I've been looking at. If you go into Jeremiah, it is much clearer now vision of what is happening. So he gets in here and they're besieging this place for 2 years between 23 and 25. He's getting pulled back up. He's going against this country. He's not into the city yet because this walls does not get, they do not collapse the wall. They do not break through the wall until 25. And it says April 9th of 25 when Revlon flees to the plains of Jericho. So if you look at that, he's going to die. Okay? Gog dies. Look, Gog dies. There's a 7-month burial of this person. He's not Antichrist. He can't be Antichrist. I've heard so many people, even the best scholars out here, Joel Richardson, and I'll name him out on this one because I'm so tired of hearing about this. Gog is not Antichrist. Antichrist is a being that does not perish until he's thrown in the lake of fire at the 6th bowl, okay? And that's at the very end on the Battle of Armageddon. That's the only time he perishes. Gog dies and they bury him for 7 months in a grave on this planet in a place called Ham and Gog in the northern part of Jerusalem. And then we have a resurrectional event into Antichrist as the pit opens up. We have 5 months of scorpions come out, and we see the 6th trump hit, and because the 5th trump is the bottomless pit, the 6th trump is Antichrist, and the 7th trump, the Lord comes back. So when the false prophet and the Antichrist rise on the 6th trumpet, between that and the 7th trumpet, when our Lord comes back, all this other stuff happens. Okay, so it's a long journey to the 7th trumpet, and the first seal is not a history lesson, it's not Jesus, and it's not Antichrist. Why? Well, Antichrist is the 6th trumpet, so it can't be the first seal, and the Lord coming back is on the 7th trumpet, which is when we're taken away, so that's not the first seal. And it's not a history lesson because on Revelation 4:1, when John is taken to heaven to see this vision, it says right then, this is now a latter-day vision. You need to understand this will happen in the end. Okay? So look, I'm not trying to be... I just believe this is what's going to happen, okay? And I'm the only one talking about this. So, I've been talking about this for 3 or 4 years now on video alone. I've been talking about it for a long time, but on video alone, when Gog popped in my head, I told you this was what was going to happen. He told me what was going to happen. And that is whatever it is. You guys can believe that or not. It is what it is. This is what led me to all this stuff. I've been trying to disprove it for 3 or 4 years now, and I can't. I've been trying. It just doesn't seem to, it is the same thing it was when I first started talking about it. Only it's much more detailed. So the Kurds are going to get pushed out. They're going to get pulled down in here. Turkey's going to come down. They're going to smack them. You're going to see this start to really form in the next 6 months. Because if you go to that timeline, I tell you about the 2,300 days and how we get to the sanctification of the temple, which is on the Feast of Tabernacles in October 16th and 17th of 2027. If you work that back from the 17th, on October 17th of 2027, you work that back 2,300 days, and you can go out and Google a calendar to work from this date to this date. It will tell you exactly how many days that is. And I say that's June 30th of this year. we will start to see a major ramping up of this. And so what you're going to start to see is you're going to start to see these guys being pushed down here, okay? And by this fall, they'll get pulled down here, and Turkey's going to come down and smack them, okay? And it tells us if Jeremiah's prophecy is truly the case, by October 10th of 2023, they have already come into Israel and started to attack it. Now, once they get down into Israel, they want to get into Egypt. But God's put them stones in the way, and he won't allow them to go any further. That's what he says. He puts these stones, he has him bury these stones, Jeremiah. And they cannot go any further than this. He will not allow that. And then he brings them back up here between the two seas, and then they give them that hour of power. For 15 days, they start to attack, but then he decimates them, okay? He decimates them. And if you look at Jeremiah, if you go into there, it talks about the residue of these people that are in tents and camps, because Gog's armies are dead. That's why they're the residue. It's not that there aren't people of these armies left. And they're burying these people for 7 months. It's going to be, and now you have 10 nations forming down into 4. So the chaos over there is going to be extremely extreme. And as all this is happening, we're watching them throw these people into a pit to bury them all. And then in 5 months or so, we start to see a resurrection event as that 5th trumpet hits. And what else is happening? So Gog dies on the 6th seal. Okay, they start to bury these guys. We have the 7th seal sound. We have a half an hour of silence. 144,000 people are selected as the elect. And he hands out the 7 trumpets. Revelation 8, 1 and 2, people. If you think the 6th seal overlaps into the trumpets and bowls, it's just wrong. Look at Revelation 8, 1 and 2 and read it for what it says. Not when somebody interprets it for you to say. It says this, and you go look at it. When the 7th seal is broken, which means all 6 seals prior to that have been broken at this point, there is a half an hour of silence, and then and only then does he hand out the 7 trumpets, and we start into the trumpet phase. So if someone's telling you the 6th seal is a trumpet or bowl phase, they're wrong. And you can disprove them in 2 verses, Revelation 8, 1 and 2. Okay, so think about that. As he gets up here and he starts to attack into Israel, he tries to get into Jerusalem, but he can't break through the wall. It tells us the wall is not besieged until 2 years later almost. Okay? So I was wrong a little until I read Jeremiah and really broke it down that it's not when he touches the Temple Mount, when he destroyed, when he gets to the walls of the temple, to the walls of Jerusalem, he will be destroyed. Then all these camps and chaos will rise up. These burials will happen. We will start to see 7 months of burials. We will see then what happened. That silence happened. The 7th seal's broken. The trumpets are handed out. And then you see a devastation of 4 trumpets on 1/3 of the planet. Okay, you've already got 1/4 of the world under war here. Okay, Turkey has now placed this whole group of sections to Afghanistan. All this stuff is under war now, okay? But once you get to the trumpets, then 1/3 of the world is devastated. And who are those places? The communist areas. That's why I keep saying, China may attack us. They may launch things against us, but they're mostly concerned about Taiwan and Hong Kong and the Southern Pacific and all these things. And as we're having total internal strife from this election and other things in our country, I don't necessarily think they're going to be much of a threat to anybody. I think China will think, you know what, we'll just let them take care of themselves. Why should we get in the middle of that? They've created their own dilemma. So Turkey's going to drive over here. They're going to run down. They're going to get stuck in here. They're already going to be attacking this in 2023. They're going to come back from here to here. That's what it says. He's going to sit between two seas. He's going to be devastated. All 6 countries are going, or all 10 countries are going to be pummeled by God. These regions of these 10 kings, okay, the 10 kingdoms, okay, will form into 4 regions. Oh, keep going down there. It's not right. Because Egypt and Saudi Arabia are not part of the 10 kingdoms. So you got to look at the footprint of the 10 kingdoms. These will form down into 4 regions, which will then become a diversified king of the beast kingdom, which is when Antichrist comes out. So the 6th seal is going to pop. Erdogan and his armies are going to die trying to get into Jerusalem. That doesn't happen. It tells us that clearly. But once that 7th seal happens and we see that trumpet start to happen and that burial, which happens up here in the northern part of Israel, you have that burial up in here in Ham and Gog. A new city comes from it. You see that resurrection event occur on the 6th trumpet. And then we see Antichrist come out of this. Okay, that is the process. Daniel 8, okay, has to happen first. Turkey has to destroy the Kurds in Iran. It's just that simple. They're absorbed into the 10 Muslim caliphate called the Ottoman nightmare that's coming upon you. They're going to go through Israel to get to Egypt. They have no choice. They start besieging Egypt. It says, if the prophecy of Jeremiah is right, on October 10th of 2023. And that once they get here, they'll hit those stones that God's planted. See, it's stopped. It's like a wall. Wow, walls work. Get pushed back into Israel, be decimated by the wrath of the Lamb. The wrath of the Lamb is Jesus, not God's wrath. God's wrath is in Revelation 15:1. That's a long time later from what we're talking about now. That's after the trumpets and all that. And then you get into the bowl phase. Okay, this is, look, Revelation 6 is all about the Lamb. The beginning to the end, it's talking about Jesus and how he gets the book and how they're going to go against his people and how the wrath of the Lamb at the very end, it's like Revelation 6:15 or 16. I can't remember off the top of my head. You go there, it says the wrath of the Lamb, not the wrath of the God. The wrath of God is the Father. The Lamb is the Son, okay? There's a big difference. Okay, so enough of this prophecy update on this portion. What you need to know is the Kurds are in a terrible place right now. They're being pummeled on multiple levels, okay? And once they finally get driven out of here, they're going to start getting squeezed down in towards Shusharan. And that then will cause their destruction in the fall. And then they'll start driving down, Erdogan and his nightmare will start driving down into Egypt. But they got to go through Israel to do that. And that's why Jeremiah tells you that this country is besieged for 2 years. Between the 11th or the 9th and the 11th year of King Zedekiah, which I say is relevant. So you go look at those prophecies, tell me what you think, but I believe this is what's happening over in this area. Okay, one last thing I will say about Damascus. Okay, and I think this should be covered. I was thinking I shouldn't really go here, but I think I will. Okay, so we get into this Damascus. Everybody's all worried about Damascus being crushed here in the near future. Look, it tells us clearly in Daniel and a number of places, Jeremiah and all these different prophets, that as the armies of the south and the armies of the north are having these constant battles, even between when Gog's here and he dies, Egypt is having an insurrection against Turkey, okay? They're constantly battling back and forth, okay? Even when Antichrist is on the ground, it tells us that this never ends, that this is constantly going on. And what is right in the middle of that? Damascus, okay? This is going to be that route that they're going to take between these two lines of battle. Okay, Damascus is here, Turkey's here, and Egypt's here. They have no choice, and it is a straight line through here. They're going to be battling back and forth and constantly going through this. There'll be nothing left of Damascus by the time it's done. And that's what it says. No stone will be left on each other. But it is not, because Turkey is going to come right through Damascus, come down in here, come over here, and then back up. That is not how this happens. I don't mean to step on anybody's theology here. You are cutting Daniel 8 out by doing this. You have to have the Kurds align with Iran and then be destroyed, which then will get you into Egypt and then back into Israel. There is a process of how he's doing this, and if you go look at it, Daniel 8 has to happen to then get to Ezekiel 38:39, because guess what? If you go into Ezekiel 38, what does it tell you? Iran is like the first country mentioned, Persia. Okay? Why? Because they're already been absorbed. They're not their own country anymore, in the sense of the country that they have their own leaders. Turkey's already taken care of that, and now they're part of the system. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But I think if you go look at that map, and you look at this road map, you look at the Daniel 11 especially, you get into 10 and 11, it starts talking about the kings of the south, kings of the north, and how they're going to be fighting back and forth and taking spoils back and forth, and we're going to have these lines of people being captive and taken into Babylon, okay, which is up in Turkey. So and think about that, when he gets up here and he breaks through those walls, the people have an exodus to the east. So the Jews that are fleeing, which are being pushed north through Palestine and all that, are now moving into Jordan, to Petra, to Edom, to the hidden place, the third that are going to be taken away. So that's a pretty important thing. So once Erdogan gets down here, gets brought back up, starts to attack, you see that devastation. But these campments of these people, these nomads that are going to be out here, are going to form together, and they're going to keep attacking Israel, because we also see that famine that's going to be coming in here about a year or so prior to 23. We're going to see Joel 1 happen before Gog of Joel 2. And Joel 3 is all about the sixth bowl. That's Armageddon. That's a long time from now. So if they want to equate Joel 2 to 3, that's just wrong. Joel 2 is the attack of Gog on Jerusalem. And if you get into Joel 3, that is the talking of the nations coming together at the very end and going against Antichrist nations, or what's left of the wicked. And so hopefully God will give salvation to some of the people that go against Antichrist at the end. But the rapture at that point will already happen on the sixth trumpet, or I mean on the seventh trumpet. And then we start into that bowl phase, which is chapter 15 and 16 of Revelation itself. Okay, everybody wants to know what's going on with the prophecies of the election. I don't, you know what? There's so much out here, I'm not even sure I could tell you exactly. These are the prophecies that matter. One is Cyrus the king, which brought Christianity back to the world. Basically, sort of like Trump did to our country. He brought Christianity back into our world, tried to unite the countries of the world and bring them back together with Israel. So you can consider him a potential Cyrus. And so if you consider him Cyrus, and he would be, who's the next king after Trump? Well, it was his son. So in Cyrus's prophecy, if you look at it, and I'm not going to get too deep into these prophecies, if you look into his prophecy, he would then be reelected. Somehow Biden would not be elected here, and so his son would then affect the building of the third temple, because that was another thing Cyrus did, is he rebuilt the second temple. So would it reflect the treaty that Trump put together, how Kirshner and potentially his son, one of his sons, Eric or Don, would affect the rebuilding of the temple, and Trump would then be in place? And so the only way that can occur at this point is through the Insurrection Act, and then he would then, they have the military in place to do this in all 50 states right now, in all capitals. Okay, they're like military zones. So would he lock this place down completely, create martial law on the cities, lock them down, arrest everybody that matters, because they have the documentation now from all the dumps on who's the criminals and who's not, and then Trump would just be, he would have to give authority over to the military, and then because he was elected, truly, once they show proof that he was elected as the new president, they would then bring him back in as the new president. And then Kirshner and his son then would be that next king that would, not necessarily in the sense that he's a new king. Now, he could be reelected in 24. So one of the sons could be elected in 2024, and then he would then affect the temple rebuild in 25. Because look at the, when I was talking about that 2025 date, and Revlon gets taken away in April 9th of 2025, and then he's removed, then we see the breakup of the lands, which is on the treaty, and then you start to see the rebuilding of that temple. So it would fall in line with him coming in 2024. So that's a potential option there. The other option is that we've basically lost our soul. Christianity has lost its last stronghold, and Biden now is your president, and we have a fairly radicalized Muslim first vice president. And I don't mean, I'm not saying that lightly. She is a radicalized Muslim, and she will radicalize this country, and Obama started the radicalization, and Biden's just a puppet, but he's an evil puppet in the sense that he will allow this to happen. And it's just like a watchman. If we're not telling you these things, and we're allowing the armies to climb over the wall and kill the people behind us because we've not sounded the alarm, we're no better than the people going over the walls and killing you. Okay? So it's our duty as watchmen to tell you these things. What will happen? I don't know. If Biden gets in, will there be rioting on the street? Will that revolutionary moment happen back in 1776, where the shot out of nowhere came and changed the whole world? Because that's all it's going to take. One bullet, one person pulling the trigger, doing the dumb, the stupid out here will change everything. Okay? And that's just how broken it is right now, and that's how dysfunctional it is, and that's where we've come. That's where the left has drove the right, and I'm not radicalized myself. I don't want to go out and hurt anybody. This is craziness, okay? But this is where it's heading. This is where they've taken this. And then they cry unity, unity, unity. Really? Unity of what? Unity because you've are a fascist and you want us to follow your ideology, and I'm sorry, I can't go there. I don't care where you take me. I can't go down this road. You're taking me to a place that I can't go, and we can only go so far your way. You keep taking us left, but you never come back to the right. So we just can't go there anymore. And I don't want anybody to see violence, but you know damn well that something's going to happen here. It's a powder keg waiting to happen. So two things are going to happen here. Trump's not going to do anything. And you've got to wonder about that, because he has a moral obligation to this country to protect it. and we are under siege of either a foreign entity through the election systems that were propagated through the false voting and different things through the Dominion systems, or internally through a takeover of this country through a false election that was basically stolen through manipulation of multiple platforms of the election cycle. And so, where's this going to end up? Excuse me. Two places. Biden's going to get in and nothing's going to happen, which is going to make somebody out here upset on the right, the extreme right. And we both got extremes, left and right, okay? So it can happen on both sides. I get told, oh, it's this side or it's that side. No, it's both sides. You know what? That's how bad it is out here. But once this happens, this is going to break. Somebody's going to shoot somebody somewhere, and the whole thing's going to ignite into a powder keg, and then it will just be a total civil war, and they're going to lock it down anyway. It could go quiet. It could go quiet. Biden will get in, and the Republicans and the right will just lay down and allow this shit to just be stolen from us, and we'll lose the soul of this country forever. That is a possibility. And that is the other possibility. So Trump created insurrection through the Insurrection Act, give the military the ability to reclaim this country and arrest all the criminals through all the documentation that they have. And then they would create military tribunals like the Nuremberg trials. They would put everybody through there, stick everybody in Gitmo or wherever until they can process everybody on, hey, you're on the list, or hey, you're not on the list. But they've got the capitals locked down. They could just go in and arrest everybody. They are the problem. It's not the people. It's the government. Trump knows that. He hasn't made, I would not want to be Trump. He has a dilemma in front of him. He knows that if he doesn't do anything, that this country's gone, that they'll silence the right, that there won't be anything left of our voice, and they'll put us in camps before they're done if they have their choice. So what will happen during the election? I don't know. The other one that came up is if you go into Jonathan Cahn's paradigm, and there's a king called Jehu, I think. It's Jehu. If you go into his paradigm, his son also took over, and so then that would mean that Trump also would be reelected as the new president. So could it happen? Yes, it can. Why? Because God can make anything happen. He could change us around in a second if he wants. Are we being judged? Possibly. Trump did some bad things in office. He put some transgender people in there, which is against God's belief systems. He split the land of Israel. There's a few things that we have to look at. But in general, he's tried to repent, become a better man, which they hate. Here a man that, did some things in his past, finally found God again, repented, came back to God, and then tried to lead a nation back to God. They hate him for it. They hate every fiber of him for it because it makes them look at themselves in the mirror. And they don't like what they see when they look in the mirror. So they don't have mirrors in their houses probably, other than to be a little bit facetious here. But anyway, let's go on to the next topic. So tomorrow's a big day because we have to discern who is our new president. Either way, it could go quietly or we could see a lot of turmoil in this country. If there's a lot of turmoil, then they will create martial law upon the system, okay, to quell everything down and try to put some sanity back into our world because, well, it's not sane anymore out here. I would suggest that you go out and get some money out of the bank and put some cash in your home, because if they do create martial law, they could potentially put down what they call capital controls on the banks and things. So because Once people realize they're in panic mode, they're going to go and they're going to run the banks. Okay? So you need to put some extra cash in your home just in case. And I don't know anything's going to happen. I'm just telling you, you should always prepare for the worst and hope for the best here. But one of the best things you can do is to be prepared. You cannot get to your money if they won't allow you to get to the money, because they won't allow the banks to open for a certain duration of time. And then once they do open, like they did in Venezuela and some other locations where this has happened before, you can only take out a certain amount of money, okay? A couple $100 a week or whatever they decide. I don't know about you, but I can't pay my bills on a couple $100 a week. But so if you have some extra cash and food and water in your homes to wait this thing out, allow, this is like the Exodus back in Moses' day when the fog came in and killed the firstborn, and they put the blood over their homes to protect themselves because that was the seal of God, and so the death walked around them. And this is sort of a similar situation here, that you do not want to be out in the chaos. He warns you of this chaos. That's why he tells you to put the oil in the lamp, so that you don't have to be in the chaos. You don't want to be out there. You don't want to be exposing yourself to disease and, physical harm as people are going insane out there. And it takes, in this environment of drunkenness, where there's this illusion upon this world where everything's upside down, it does not take anything for someone to crack and go off. And so you have to watch that. It takes very little to, get people to the break point at this point. They're already at the break point. So last place you want to be is out there in this. I told people for a number of times, there's, a number of things you got to think about, especially now. You got warmth to think about. You got hygiene to think about. You have to keep your nutrition up, which is 2,000 calories a day on average per person. You need about 1 gallon to 2 gallons of water a day per person. You need medicines. You need to stock up on medicines if all possible. Put some extra cash in your home, and I hate to say it, but you probably need to have already bought your weapons and bullets to protect your home from people trying to take things from you. Not necessarily that you have to go out and do anything with those weapons. That is not what this is about. It's protecting your families while you're on lockdown mode in case people are rummaging through and trying to steal the things from you. Okay? And then you can either hopefully deter them from doing it and not ever have to use them. But if martial law gets placed down, your world will change for a short period of time, if not forever. And these capitals are in a serious lockdown. I mean, we're at levels 5 times higher than the green zone in Iraq right now. So why? Because they're thinking something's coming up, and the airwaves are quiet. No one's talking. Everybody that's smart right now isn't saying anything. And if they're playing anything, no one's hearing about it. And they're talking in media or ways that aren't being picked up by the governments and things. So regardless, we're not going to know before it happens. So anyway, be safe out there. And while you're in your homes thinking about all this stuff, you need to pull your Bibles out and read them occasionally and find out what's really happening. Don't take my word for any of this stuff. That's the one thing I keep trying to tell people. I'm trying to figure it out like you are. I'm no different than any of you. I'm just trying to figure it out. You need to figure it out. The only way you're going to figure it out is to get in that Bible and start to break these books down so they make sense, okay? And that's all I've been trying to do, is to break them down to make sense in what's happening in current events and what's going on around us at this very moment. On the corona front, so we're at the 5-week peak right now, okay? And you can tell that. So I use the world meter to determine cases in the world, deaths, and the statistics. Now, we all know that the statistics are skewed one way or the other. Either China's not telling us anything, or they're reporting people that are dying that may not have died from corona. So we don't have real numbers, and until you actually go out and test everybody on the planet, you would never really know exactly what's going on here. Right now, this is at about, we're getting close to 1 million infections a day. I've talked about this. We could get to 1 to 1.5 million infections a day, which is 30 to 50 million people a month. I've been talking about this for a while. Nobody's listening. We're at 2 million deaths in this country. We're at 400,000. Okay, and so we have to put that in perspective. Normal flu seasons are about 28 to 30,000 deaths. We're at 400,000 deaths, over 10 times, 15 times what a normal flu season would be, even if you factor in a normal flu season. And we're not through this flu season. This isn't over yet. And that's why I keep telling people, do not jump to the beginning of the story and go, I know where this is going to end. No, you don't. I've been telling you for a while this is going to be on the Spanish flu, because the Spanish flu was a regional thing that burned itself out over time. We are transmitting this all over the world because we're mobile. There is a huge difference in what happened back then and what's going on now. And if they keep opening it up, and I get it. But I heard a man say something the other day, and I have to agree with him. Maybe we're all supposed to figure out how to get off the system before the system collapses, and we can't be on the system anyway, because we aren't going to be able to have jobs and things before long, because the beast system isn't something we can be part of. So maybe there's a reason for this. We've had a lot of people recovered, but the new virus mutants, the variants, are reaffecting people within 5 months and killing them, okay? And they're shutting down all kinds of things from lungs. They have blood clotting problems. There's all kinds of stuff going on out here. These are scarring factors. They're affecting everybody. If everybody wants to tell you this is a 0.0001% thing, whatever, it is a 3% mortality rate on the global level. It's just that simple. Go look at the chart. You guys can come out and find this stuff and quit looking at the disinformation. I use this site because it seems to be the most updated, and it gives you very specific things about countries and different things in real time. So I'm guessing this is about as good as it gets. As you can see, we're pushing up around the 839,000 mark. This was the first group or spike, and we sort of quelled it here, but it popped its ugly head back out because we had the 4th of July, Memorial Day, and all that. We're into the second wave, which isn't ended yet, and then we're going to get that third little bump at the end of beginning of March, April, at the end of flu season. But this isn't being affected by warm weather and all this other stuff. These are engineered, and they're able to adapt much easier. And this new virus strain coming out of the UK is not less harmful. It is potentially as harmful, and it's much more transmittable, and it's hurting children as well as older and preconditioned people. So no one is safe at this point. Everyone is suspect. The antibody proteins that once you get it wear off. The documentation showing about 5 to 6 months. So this is every year we have to be inoculated, or you're just going to have to deal with being infected every year and hope it doesn't turn into something bad or than a normal flu. So these are the things that we're looking at. But you can go look at these charts. You can see the spikes. You saw the first spike, see the second spike. It's pretty obvious. I've been talking about this 5-week spike, and I said in my last video about the middle of January we'd start to see this major spike, and guess now we're starting to see that. But now we have a new variant, which is making this even more compounded than it was before. And they're going to now, through the Biden policies, open the economy up because, wow, it didn't work for Trump, but it will work for them somehow. I don't know how that works, but we'll see. Anyway, so that's the corona story at this point. We are in the middle of a nightmare. The infections are much higher at this time. We're getting close to the million mark a day. That's 30 million people infected a month. And so if you take that and even go back to the Spanish flu, you'll realize that this isn't even a Spanish flu thing at this point. This is going to continue on for a number of years. And until we get to the end of the story, don't try to figure out where it ends up because no one knows. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, just a little bit more about this Revlon prophecy. I put this, I've not made a video about this. This is a brand new concept. No one seems to have found this paradigm. I believe there's some validity to it. If you click on the story or the article I've written, it will talk about 3 leaders. The leader of Israel now, or the president that we have in place in Israel now, Benjamin Netanyahu, which I believe will be the newest president in 2021 that will be elected and brought in, and Erdogan, which is Nebuchadnezzar, or the president of Turkey. These 3 kings affect Jeremiah's prophecy. Okay, it is a reflection of past to new. And so if you go through and you look at what I did in that video or in this article, you'll realize I'm going to do a video someday here, but there's a lot to it. So I'm going to put it together so it makes as much sense as I can make of it. That if you put these 3 kings into these positions and they all fall in line with what's going on today and the number of years that they've been in leadership and how they're going to affect us in the next 5 to 7 years is incredibly insane. He gives you physical dates potentially of things that are going to happen, like on October 10th of 2023, Jerusalem is besieged. Okay, you go look at Jeremiah 39:1, and it's telling you there's a date there. Okay, but if you look at these 3 kings and how long they've been in positioned with the times that he gives these kings of those very specific verses, you start to realize that they really line up really well. This Revlon, this man that I didn't even know existed, everybody talks about Netanyahu, but who's this guy, this Revlon guy? And is this actually a paradigm in Jeremiah that will reflect his future? It's pretty concise. And the reason I bring this up is that if you take this timeline that he gives you, if you use it based on these 3 kings, and you place it into this timeline that I've already built, you realize that they fall in place almost perfectly with what I've been talking about this whole time. And it's all about the fall feast being fulfilled. He's already completed the spring feast. He was, crucified. He was laid to rest for 3 days, and then he was resurrected. And that was the spring feast. Passover, unleavened bread, those feasts. But in the fall, you have the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, and the Feast of Tabernacles. And these feasts have not been fulfilled yet. But they will be by these dates. And so if you consider Erdogan as the first seal, which I believe was broken on October 9th of 2019, which started the sorrows and the birth pains on this world, which is right about the time the corona came out, that we will start to walk into that Daniel 8 effect. In around June, we're going to start to see that ramp up into the fall, where you see that destruction of Iran by Turkey once the Kurds join. So once you see that happen, you know Daniel 8's on, and you know where we are in the chart here. But I've updated this chart. I've added the PDF to this article. So you can go out to the bottom. You can click on that PDF. You can bring that up. Hopefully you can read it. If not, I'll put a video together so that we can I can show you more detail into the chart as we move forward. So I've covered a lot of different things. I'm almost into an hour here. I probably rambled more than I should. Just realize a lot of things are happening. A lot of things could happen in the next 24 to 48 hours. But a lot of things are going to happen in the next year. One is the destruction of Iran. Regardless of what happens in this election cycle, this is going to start to deteriorate because God tells us that. He is in control. I don't care what we think, what we do, or anything. God's in control at this time, and so we have to trust that he has a plan. Regardless of whether Biden gets in or Trump takes this country back through a military insurrection from an original coup that was presented to this country through the Democratic Party through a stolen election. That's what's happening here. So God bless everyone. Be safe out there. Bunker down. Things are going to get mean out here. You need to have already put everything in place. You should have your oil already in place. If you haven't, you better get it in place, because the next year is going to change everything we know out here. So you've still got time, but once they put martial law down, if that does happen, that could change things overnight. And you just may not have the option then, and then you're in a bad place, and then you're relying on the government for food and other things, because you can't go out and actually do much other than to rely on the system at that point. And that's the last place you want to be, is on the system. So repent, get right with the Lord, find the narrow door, which is Jesus. He is the only way to the Creator, to get to heaven, to get through this madness. Excuse me. To get to the end of the story and get on the right side of this picture, you have to find Jesus. That's the only way, people. He clearly tells you, you got to go through the sun. And you know what? The Jews are going to figure that out in the next 2 to 5 years. They're going to be under a major locust event within the next year. And then they're going to get attacked by a nation of 10 Muslim nations. And then the remnant's going to flee. And so this judgment's going to be extreme on them. But this is what God's plan is, and we can't change his plan. This is already in play, and there's nothing we can do to turn this back. So God bless everybody, and have a great night.